If you're old enough to vote, are you registered?
Yes.
No.
So you're not old enough to vote, right?
No.
But you plan to register to vote?
Yes, definitely.
I am old enough, and I just recently registered.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
No, I'm not registered.
I'm actually not a citizen in this country, but I would vote.
But when you are old enough, do you think you're registered?
Yeah. If I was, would I register? Yeah, definitely.
I think you should definitely get registered as soon as you're old enough. I don't see why people wouldn't want to be a part of that.
Have you ever voted in an election?
Yeah.
No, not yet.
No, but I will be in this election. How important do you feel it is to vote?
It's actually very important because the one vote that I have, you can pretty much make a difference.
Every vote counts.
Every vote counts.
So do you think that every single vote counts?
Not really. I think they be lying.
It should count, but sometimes, like the last couple elections, you had a lot of crazy things that happen.
Some people can say that they don't, but I think they do because it gives like a general consensus of like what people think and their, what they want.
It's important to vote so you can look up to somebody that you think that would be the best leader for you.
Very important.
And because that's the person that's leading your country.
Basically, if you don't vote, you have absolutely no say. And one vote does count, in the grand scheme of things. It's hard to think about that, but it is true.
I think everybody can make a difference.
I feel it's really important that everyone should have a say. You have views and aspects that you need to apply them to where you live, your country.
It's not just one person's country, it's everybody's. I think everybody should have that chance to vote.
I feel it's really important to vote because there's so many different kinds of people that make up the world, and you want to get everyone's opinion instead of just one kind of person.
Dwight D. Eisenhower, the 34th President of the United States, once said,
"The future of this republic is in the hands of the American voter."
Voting is one of our most cherished constitutional rights.
And it is the key to our continued survival as a democratic nation.
When we turn 18, we are granted the right to directly influence the direction of our country.
And while voting is not a legal obligation, it is a moral responsibility required of all Americans, of all Christians.
Voting. That's what we'll be talking about today. Hi everyone, I'm Caitlin.
And I'm Elias.
And this is Realfaith TV.
It seemed like most of the teens on the street understood the importance of voting and registering to vote.
We'll talk with them a little later in the show, as well as meet our spotlight guest Jenna, who turned 18 this year and has recently registered to vote.
But first, let's welcome our very special studio guest today, Bishop of Trenton, John M. Smith.
I'm glad to be on the show about voting, but because I can remember the first time I voted in presidential election, it was 1956. I was 21 years old, and the choice was between Adlai Stevenson and President Eisenhower. And I remember so clearly going to vote for the very first time.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us, Bishop. Well, why don't we see what the rest of our studio guests have to say about this topic?
All right, let's introduce you to them. They are John, Ajama, Ashley, Dan, and Matt.
So, are you guys registered to vote? And what was the process like? And how do you feel about being a first-time voter?
I know that I'm registered to vote. I actually registered when I turned 18. And it was really exciting. I went online and I printed off the form, I mailed it in, and then I didn't get anything back, so I was a little nervous. But then my mom saw that I was in the book and was like, "You're registered to vote, don't worry." So it was a really rewarding experience.
Well, I'm actually not registered to vote. I'm too young. But I do find ways to still be politically active. I've written letters to my local Congress people before, and I'm also involved in the debate team at my high school. And we go to multiple model Congress events throughout the year and actually debate fake legislation and try to get the bills passed and signed by the president. It's really exciting, really fun.
That is really cool. I am not registered to vote, even though I would love to be able to vote. I've wanted to vote since the 2000 presidential election, so the minute I can, I definitely will. And it's a really great opportunity. I think it's that's what makes this country so great, is the ability to vote.
I also agree, I'm too young to vote, but as soon as I become 18, I'm gonna go and register and vote.
I'm old enough to vote, and I haven't registered yet, but I find myself a little too oblivious and kind of apathetic about politics that it kind of passes my mind.
Yeah, I'm too young right now to vote, but once I reach the age, I'm really eager to vote and have my say.
Same with me. I'm not 18 yet. I'll be 18 in January, and it eats me up that I won't be able to vote in this upcoming election. But when I turn 18, I'm absolutely registering to vote, and I plan to vote in every election as long as I can.
It sounds like, a lot of people are truly psyched about voting, a lot of people that we talk to at least. And in fact, our spotlight guest, Jenna, who we're going to meet right now, she's going to tell us why she's excited to vote this fall.
And why she feels that every vote really does make a difference.
Let's check it out.
I've never voted in an election before because I just turned 18 last month, but I am registered and I do plan on voting in the election in November. I'm definitely excited about voting in my first election, but I am actually going to be at college, so I'm going to have to send in an absentee ballot, but I'm excited that I can still vote. I know a lot of teenagers don't vote, and I know a lot of my friends aren't registered to vote. They don't understand why I'm so interested in it. I got a few of my friends to sign up. Hopefully they decide to vote in November. I definitely want them to know that their vote makes a difference, and they might think that their vote doesn't count, but if every teenager said that, then there would be millions of teens that didn't vote, and those millions of votes could really have an impact. Voting is really your chance to have a say in what happens and the things that affect you. I don't understand why you wouldn't want to take part in that and really have your voice be heard. There are a lot of things that the elected officials that you're voting for decide that affect you every day. You may not even realize, whether it's the economy or just paying for college or gas prices, a president deciding if we're going to war, or like in a few years from now, you never know, there could be a draft and people our age could be being sent away.
Well, I definitely agree with Jenna. I mean, as the young people in this country, we're just as much citizens as all the older people are, and I feel that it's very important for everyone to vote. Right. What about you, Bishop? Why do you feel it's so important for young people to vote?
Well, I think it's very important that young people vote so that they get in the habit of voting and feel a real part of our American nation, and continue that practice through the whole of their lives and making their input into the civil discourse that's so important for a democracy.
Definitely. What about you guys? What do you think?
Well, I think it's important, as Bishop was talking about, that we need to make it a habit. If you don't vote now, chances are you aren't going to vote later. Right. And I know for me, I'm excited to vote, to be like, you know what, my voice can be heard, and if I don't take this opportunity, I'm probably going to regret it later.
Like what John said, we're Catholics, so we had to let our Catholic views be shown throughout the whole nation, and by voting, that really helps everyone see what we believe in.
We just have to keep stressing that your vote does count. And you may think that because your friend's voting the competitor and you're voting the other guy, your votes will cancel each other out. But if millions of people followed that line of thinking, there would be millions of votes that could have made a difference in the election.
And I thought it was extremely interesting what she was saying, because decisions that our politicians make really do affect us every day. You drive around, most of us are turning 17 or getting our licenses. The gas price, that's part of the economy. That's something that's a huge part of this upcoming election. College, all of us are going to hopefully head to college soon. Can all of us afford $50,000 colleges a year? It's a huge, substantial part of it. And sadly, a lot of people don't vote. And in fact, although voter turnout among young people rose 11% from 2000 to 2004,
more than half of those aged 18 to 24 did not cast a ballot during each of the presidential elections.
The reality is that voter turnout among the young people is disproportionately lower than the older demographic.
Perhaps you have friends like Jenna's who don't really appreciate the importance of voting.
Or people who choose not to vote because they can't side with either of the candidates.
But being politically involved helps you become informed about the issues at stake and aware of where each candidate stands.
So, do you think teens should get involved politically even if they're not old enough to vote?
That's what we asked the teens on the street.
Let's check it out.
It's important for young people to be politically involved, because when they get older, as they get older, if they're not politically involved, they won't know anything that's going on with the environment around them. You got to know your outside surroundings and how much problems there are out there, and some things you can do to help it.
So I think it's very important, and if you're not part of the society and if you're not doing what you can to, do right in it, then I don't know.
It's our generation. I feel that we should know what's going on and we should be involved in it.
Younger people, even though they can't vote, I think that they should still know what's going on.
I wouldn't say too important, because kids just may have a look at the person and be like, nah, I don't want them to be our government president.
Young people, their lives are very affected by politics, so if they don't have the will to partake in it, then it's just the old people or whoever want to, they're telling them what to do. So I think if they want to better their lives and if they want change, then they should definitely take part and be politically active.
And they need to get more involved because, you know, we are going to be the future. So if they don't start now, then they're never going to.
I don't think it's really important, but at the same time, we are the future. Even though we're young, we're going to be the people tomorrow. So it's kind of important because once like the older people pass on, we're going to be old and we should be involved.
I think they should start young so that way they have a better understanding of it when they get older, so they do know how to vote.
I definitely agree with the fact that we are the future. And you know, if you think about it, if we vote more and we get more of our friends to vote, we take up a bigger voting block, so that way we do have more of a say. You know, united we stand.
Definitely.
So what about you guys? Is there any way that you stay politically involved in, you know, your communities?
I personally, I know since I'm too young to vote, but my church, we write letters to our congressmen and our representatives about like our last one that we did a couple months ago was on abortion and being like pro-life. And so that's how I stay politically active.
I know that I'm online all the time checking what is the latest news around the country and the world and along the campaign trail and figuring out where do the candidates stand and what can I do to learn more about them.
And, you know, you definitely have to take the media, you know, don't take it for granted, but you have to realize that the media definitely influences things, and sometimes they may be rooting for one candidate, but you really need to get to the root of it and see which candidate, you know, holds your values most closely.
Now, Bishop, I just have a quick question for you, if you don't mind. Has there ever been a time where you feel that there's been conflicting emotions between your political views and what the Catholic Church doctrine teaches?
Well, I think, alas, we live in a very complex world with many, many, many issues. That's one of the reasons why the bishops chose to put out this document, Forming Conscience, so that people could realize that there are many, many issues that we have to take positions on. Right. And not any particular one has everything involved in it. There's ecology, there's right to life, there's needs of the poor. All these different issues are part of our consciousness as Catholic Christians, and we have to have input on them.
Right. And the most important thing is to not just tell them what to do. We want to inform them, correct?
We want to inform them, and then they have to think it through on their own lives and see how it fits into the society in which we live.
Values, right?
The big picture.
Yeah.
The big picture.
It wants to influence the voters, so when they go to vote, they think of like Catholic morals in their conscience.
Well, Jesus never ran for office or held any political positions, but he did influence public opinion and decisions.
Throughout his ministry, he met with the poor and the sick, listening to their stories and doing what he could do to help.
He asked his disciples to share everything with the poor.
As Christians, we are also called to influence public decisions and opinions.
And what better way to do this than to vote?
It's not only our civic responsibility, but our obligation as followers of Christ.
Although voting is fairly easy, what's difficult is deciding who to vote for.
Next, Jenna talks about these difficulties
and how the light of faith can help lead you to the decision which best represents what you believe.
I think it's definitely difficult to make a choice on who you're voting for, because you might agree with one candidate on one issue, but you might agree with another candidate on another issue, and to decide which one's more important or who you think will follow through with that is kind of difficult. It's your morals and your values, like there's certain things that your faith helps you to believe in that you really want to stand up for, whether it's abortion or helping the homeless or like something along those lines. Like, you definitely need to look at all aspects of things, but there are also other topics that need to be looked at too. We have 2 wars going on right now, the economy, like all those things are really important. So I definitely take what the church has taught me and what I've learned from that and apply that to who I want to vote for. I think a lot of people try to avoid what's going on in our country or around the world. They don't want to really hear about it. It might make them nervous or it scares them, and they don't really want to think about what's going on. But it's a reality. Like, our generation is a big part of what's going on right now, and we don't have to wait until we're older to have that impact. We can start right now. So it's really important to just go out and vote and really have your voice heard.
I love what she was saying about, the issues are, the quintessential parts of the election, basically. And Jenna mentioned some of the political issues that will factor into who she ultimately decides to vote for.
How about you guys? What do you think about these issues? What issues are you passionate about, and what would you look for in the ideal candidate?
I think that one of the major topics is the war. It's very important that we have the most minimal damage done to our country.
I definitely agree. That's the issue that's most important to me. And I wish people would just put aside whether they're for or against it and try to support our troops that are there, and they're fighting for our safety, and so it's our job to make sure that they're secure. And I would really look for a candidate that would pass more funding to give more money towards things like better equipment, better safety procedures so they can be safe.
I think I have two major issues. The first is right to life in all aspects, death penalty and abortion, that protecting the human dignity of life. And then the other one is, since I'm going to be a teacher when I grow up, I want to make sure that whichever candidate I'm going to vote for has a really strong education plan in progress from school funding all the way through college.
That's definitely a major issue because, like we said before, the kids of today are the future of tomorrow. So we need to make sure that those kids are well educated and, you know, like we said before, what you said about money in college, it's so expensive. So we really do, another major issue is the economy. We need to get that back up and running smoothly.
Even though I'm not familiar with the political aspects of these things, I know that healthcare is a big issue that needs to be, directed.
With that, I feel that Social Security is a very big issue because it affects everyone, and with the children are going to be the future of tomorrow. Like, we need to have a good future for ourselves and for the people that are old and using Social Security now.
I think in just this quick runaround, we've surfaced so many issues, and we could probably, if we had more time, surface 10 more. And they're all very important. And I think that's wonderful to be informed about these issues as very best we can, to see it as a Christian responsibility to make an informed decision, and even to pray about, now, with these decisions, who am I going to choose to vote for? It could be a prayerful decision.
I mean, a lot of people have different ways that they decide on the issues and their candidates, how should I vote for them? But faith really does play a part in it, because sometimes you just need to step back and say, well, my faith really determines who I truly am. So based on that, who do I think will best serve the United States? I mean, that's basically how it needs to break down. And in fact, next we asked the teens on the street if they think their religious beliefs should influence how they vote.
Let's hear what they had to say.
That someone's faith belief should influence their political opinion and how they vote?
Not really. I mean, faith, yeah, I believe it.
No, but I would say that it probably does, due to what they believe in.
Faith, I think it can help with your vote, depending on how you your outspec is about faith.
If you're a really strong believer in your faith, then it could.
Definitely, because faith is a big part of many people's lives. So if it means that much to them, then they should definitely use it for their political feelings.
It all ties in together,
Your religion is where your morals and everything are from, so it's definitely important.
Yeah, what you believe is morally right,
Do you ever rely on the teachings of your faith to help you make decisions when it comes to voting?
I haven't really partaken in too many elections, so not really. So I'll have to see how it works this November.
I've never voted before, but I would hope that it would.
Yeah, definitely, because if I have something that I really believe in and I think it's right.
I don't think you should vote for somebody if they go against your believing.
People are not Christians on Sunday and citizens during the week. Discipleship is not an either-or choice.
Christians are both dedicated to Jesus' teachings and responsible for their civic duty as employees, taxpayers, and voters.
In a statement by the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops entitled Forming Consciences for Faithful Citizenship, we read,
"Responsible citizenship is a virtue, and participation in political life is a moral obligation.
This obligation is rooted in our baptismal commitment to follow Jesus Christ and to bear Christian witness in all that we do.
Our focus is not on party affiliation, ideology, economics, or even competence and capacity to perform duties,
as important as such issues are. Rather, we focus on what protects or threatens human life and dignity."
So, Bishop, could you share with us what faithful citizenship is and how this document came about?
Surely, the bishops of the United States produced in November of 2007 this document to assist the Catholic faithful in forming their consciences about faith. Now, faith is not a warm feeling. Faith is the core values that we have about the nature of human life, who we are as persons, who every other person is in our society, what we owe to the poor, the needy, what we owe to the planet Earth in terms of its being productive for future generations. So there's a wide gasp of things contained in this document that people should think about when they are trying to select a candidate who best reflects what we as Catholics hold as important and the core values. Lifting our consciences to understand the complexities of the world in which we live so that we can make an impact on that world through the way we vote, the people we put in public office.
And it's really important to become clear on that.
Definitely is.
And in fact, next Jenna tells us why she considers herself a faithful citizen.
Let's take a look.
I definitely consider myself a faithful citizen. I go to church regularly, and a lot of the things that I stand for, I've come to be interested in through church or through the people I've been associated with at church. I think that really helps me to take a stand on things that I believe in, and it helps me to really care more about what's going on in the world and hopefully try and make a difference. I think by praying and just keeping in mind what is important to you and what you've learned through your faith can really help you to decide what candidate you think will serve our country the best. My vote will have a lot to do with my faith and the things that I stand for, but I don't even realize that I'm basing it off of that. It's something that I'm so used to and something that I've always stood for, that if a candidate didn't stand for those things, I would almost subconsciously not like them. You have to really look to yourself and see what you believe in and what you stand for, and the things in your community that you can do, whether it's just joining your church youth group and helping out in a soup kitchen or with the food pantry, or just raking leaves for someone that can't do it themselves. So you can start by doing something like that, but by voting you can definitely, it's on a bigger scale, and it's a way of kind of reaching more people than you may be able to reach in your own town without even realizing it.
I think when Jen was talking about prayer, it's so important that if you can, or even if you can't vote, just praying for our country, praying for our nation, and praying for those who are going to be voting. You know, prayer is so powerful, and we should start now in the hopes that our country will come back to God and know those core values and respect every human life.
I feel that any Catholic or any Christian that goes to the polls should think about before they vote, how is this going to affect my entire nation, and I should definitely base it upon my religious views.
Right, and it's interesting what you said, because as Catholics we're not thought to think inward about ourselves. We're supposed to think about, outward. So even though a candidate might personally relate to who we are and who we think we are, if it's not good for the whole picture, then we're really just thinking about ourselves, and that's really not what Christ is telling us to do.
I think there's a common misconception amongst older voters that young people are either indifferent to politics, they just don't care, or they're easily influenced by propaganda and they're not making the right choices. But I've heard some great responses here today, and I'm really excited for the next election.
I agree with you. I mean, I think it's really important for, teens and young adults to really get involved. And as we've seen, we all have really different opinions, and our core values are obviously the same. It's really important that we continue to, put the word out and, vote for who we really believe is going to make our country the best and live our values to the fullest.
At first I was feeling different with the whole political point, and with you guys on all your information, Teens on the Street, and with the document that Bishop brought, I think that will help me better my knowledge on the whole politics and everything.
So you think from now on you'll probably register to vote, right?
I think I will register to vote, and I will continue to vote.
That's great.
Have your voice heard.
Yeah, I think that before you vote, as a voter, you should take time to examine who you're going to vote for and what beliefs you want in your leader, and then, because as part of our Christian duty, we're supposed to vote based on our values.
Right. Being here with you this morning has helped me to realize that voting is not just a political right or a civic responsibility, but it's a religious act. And I hope that many of our listeners will see their voting this year as that threefold act.
Well, thank you for coming this morning, Bishop. We really appreciate you coming out to be with us on the show this morning.
We do. Thank you very much.
It's been my pleasure, and it's a delight to know that this generation, you're all going to be faithful citizens.
Thank you very much. For first-time voters, it is so important to remember that it's your vote and nobody else's.
Catholics should use church teachings in making voting decisions.
The bishop's document on faithful citizenship also states that
our church does not offer contributions or endorsements.
instead, we raise a series of questions seeking to help lift up the moral and human dimensions of the choices facing the voters and the candidates.
The teachings of the church may challenge our own opinions, but as people called to love each other and the church,
it's important to be familiar with church teaching so it can be a resource for making moral decisions.
For more information on this, please log on to USCCB's Faithful Citizenship site at www.faithfulcitizenship.com.
So is your faith going to influence the way you vote in the upcoming election?
We'd like to hear from you. Contact us through our website.
The address is www.realfaithtv.com.
Or you can call us at 609-406-7402.
And we'll leave you today with St. Paul's first letter to Timothy, chapter 2.
I ask that supplications, prayers, petitions, and thanksgivings be offered to everyone.
For kings and for all in authority, that we may lead a quiet and tranquil life in all devotion and dignity.
This is good and pleasing to God our Savior,
who wills everyone to be saved and to come to knowledge of the truth.
Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time on
Realfaith TV. God bless.